That's right. These Maxnomic chairs are just next level. Back there, I don't know if you can see it, but my old chair, depressed, sad, nothing on it, sitting over there. Because guess what? It's not as comfortable. It doesn't have the lumbar support. Doesn't have this fancy little head pillow, and it doesn't even say SMITE on it. Why would I even sit in that chair when I have this one right here? This Maxnomic chair is just absolutely the best one that I own, and you can own one too. Go use code SMITEMAX. You can get an exclusive ward as well when you get the chair. But realistically, it's just going to make you better at SMITE, fundamentally be a better person, your life changes, all of this stuff and more that comes forward when you get yourself a Maxnomic chair. At least that's what I've heard from the people who are better than me at this, Dave and Finch. So naturally, I'm inclined to believe it, and I think you should be as well. But we're moving in to set number 2 here. Myself, Gormizer, and Aggro over there with what looks like Mackenzie's tail being featured at the very bottom.
Yeah, it's dinner time for Mackenzie, so she's hungry. That's what she came to. I
thought she was just really, really happy after seeing Renegades win. A happy Renegades win means a happy Barracuda, which makes everybody happy on the inside. But now we're going to be moving towards the Knights and eUnited. Maybe one that, if you were looking for an upset, this is the one people were expecting. So where do we stand?
I think this is going to be a pretty fun set to watch here, Gore, because both PK and eUnited have really been competitive against the top half at times, but also had moments where they looked a little bit lost. And maybe United can't afford to have those sorts of moments. But if PK do have that kind of moment, eUnited is really, really poised to strike. This eUnited team has really a lot going for them, all things considered, for an 0-9 squad.
I mean, yeah, it's so insane to think about it. You're winless, you're on a 9-loss streak in Phase 2, and yet we still not only think that you have the capability of finding a win here, you've been getting better. It's just been so difficult to find those wins for any team overall. And I'm so happy that this is where we come out to, because this has been the talk of the town for eUnited. At first, it was the swap. Snoopy, he's now the Guardian. Guy J, who is he? What's he bringing to this team? And lately, it's been Rom and Freya. It's only 2 gods, but they look good when he plays them.
They really do. And maybe that's where we have to see eUnited start to evolve, is what are we going to pick consistently for Guy J? Are we going to be able to get him in a really comfortable position? For me, that's all pretty secondary. If Scream can really pop off and look really, really comfortable and be an impact player on the map, I think it's pretty likely that eUnited's going to be able to beat just about any team in the SPL, because I think that Scream really does have that sort of potential. He's that good in the jungle whenever he's really firing on all cylinders. It's just that we haven't really seen that consistently so far here in Season 7.
Well, when we were in the waiting room, and even last set, we were all talking about Sanford Soccer. First player to get over 100 kills. I think he got like 31 kills or something ridiculous like that in Week 5. But the second most kills is coming out of this game. It is Scream. He's 6 away right now from 100, so keep your eyes on that counter throughout these games as to whether or not he can find his 100th kill in Phase 2. But he has been that impact player, and the person looking to slow him down is the quote-unquote new jungler. I mean, I don't know if we can still call him that now for the Knights, but the guy who had to replace Sam and has so far been able to live up to it, Cuvo on the other side. Coming in for the Knights, maybe an essential portion of this, but everybody on the Knights feels like they have to step up here in order to match and maybe suppress what eUnited have been bringing lately.
I agree with your highlight there of Fred, because if I'm going to highlight Scream on one side, I think it's only natural that we highlight Fred on the other. And when PK is looking like they're operating at peak efficiency, it's usually because Fred is able to get into the back line and deal the damage necessary alongside Scary D. That right side of the map, I think, is so important for PK, because when they struggle, it makes it pretty hard to win for this PK squad. They are not constructed to win games where your backline dive is not working, because Paul is going to play selfishly in team fights. That's the way this guy plays, and he's very successful at it, and we should not think about changing him, because it just won't happen. You just have to adjust your play style around it, but that requires a lot of room to be made by Fred and Scary. And Neil oftentimes gets left to the wolves in games where that space is not being made or utilized particularly effectively. And that's why Neil, I think, oftentimes ends up with these pretty ugly score lines, because he's going to do his job kind of regardless. For me, it's when Scary and Fred really struggle that PK struggles because of it. So I'm really looking for how well that right side of the map is going to match up with eUnited. So I think that's where this matchup really lies.
It's some sort of weird poetic justice where in one set of highlights we get Guy J looking great on Freya, and in the next highlights we see all of the knights killing off Freyas. We'll have to see whether or not that comes true throughout this set as we move forward to picks and bans here for game number 1. Again, we've highlighted the ROM. I think Guy J, kind of important for eUnited to get comfortable overall because of the late game impact that they've been having. But there's so many power picks for the Knights, I don't know where to call this one and what they're going to be looking at.
This is going to be a difficult one, I think, to really nail down what both teams are going to be looking for. We saw Persephone in both games of set number 1 and was not impressive, whether that's the God nerfs actually finally bringing Persephone down to a point where she's not going to be top pick, top ban anymore, or if that was just an off day for Twig. Maybe we'll see in these picks and bans. Doesn't seem like we will because both Paul and Herwind are known as Persephone specialists. Seems like Paul's not going to get a chance to play her this game, at least, as that's the first ban for United.
It is always a little unfortunate. You know, we sometimes like to jump onto Herwind and be like, man, you're really great at Yanis. If only we could apply that to a mage that was in the top 5, right, for everybody else. And if Persephone's getting banned out, maybe he has to reach a little further into his pockets. Although lately, we've seen him pulling out things. I think we got to see a couple of earlier highlights where we saw Cupid, where we've seen a lot of these other more kind of standard overall, Neith even making her way in there. So we'll have to see what eUnited does for their mid lane, what Knights will do for Paul here, who's been very versatile all year. Freya, Cthulhu, Olarun, though, banned out here by the Knights. eUnited, Yamoja, Persephone, and actually taking the ROM away. So Guy J, I mean, the two that we've highlighted for him are both off the board.
I'm just very surprised this is not an Amaterasu ban here by eUnited. I feel like that is by far the best god still on the table. I'd be shocked if PK really went any other way. Nemesis still open, sure. Who cares, dude? Ama is the pick in my mind, 100% there. I would have loved to see eUnited ban away the Ama, let PK first pick Nem. We've seen a lot of junglers really struggle to be effective on that pick, Cuvo Fred included. I would have much preferred an Ama ban there from eUnited. Now they get Cupid on the back end guaranteed with the ROM ban and the Freya ban. I feel like that's a lock. So eUnited definitely going to take that one. Now you can go a couple different routes. You can go Nemesis yourself if you so choose. You can go for something like an Erlong Shen there in the jungle for Scream if you want. Or you can try and get something ready for Snoopy like the Sobek or the Hercules. Seems like it's going to be Sobek. This is a flex pick for United. Both Variety and Snoopy play it pretty well. These are two strong picks for United. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like Ama is the cream of the crop.
I don't know. The last time I saw a team with a red background pick up Cupid Sobek, it worked pretty well for them. Took them a while, but it still got there eventually. We'll have to see if United can try to do what the Renegades did, but a little bit faster if they get their way. I'm scared if I'm them. I mean, Scary D getting Amaterasu is already frightening in and of itself, but now you've got a Hebo that can go both to Cuvo or to Paul. Either way, it's going to be deadly. Kuzenbo, which was, I think, a huge portion of what the Renegades brought earlier in their game in terms of aggression. It's a little frightening to be up against the Knights right now. I don't know what you can pick to maybe equal the playing field here.
I mean, this is going to be pretty difficult, I think, for them already, but Hebo, Kuzenbo, two very disruptive picks. I love the Hebo up against the Cupid ultimate. That Atlas of the Yellow River makes it really easy for you to just walk out. Your ultimate as well is pretty easy to walk out from. Love this Hera pickup, though, here by Herwind. Just walk up to Paul and drop Argus on him. And he has to use defensive cooldowns in order to get away. You basically have to use your ultimate. Don't think that just the movement speed is enough from the two because of how much movement speed Argus gets whenever you use that Divine Shroud. I think Hera only a small amount of pick percentage because she was out of competitive play for a little bit. Now that she's back and teams are starting to realize that, hey, maybe it isn't just that Dardes is nuts, it's that this goddess is nuts as well. I like it, man. Van played it well, and now we get to see Herwind try his hand at it.
Well, much like Bellini is sitting at attention, I think everybody should be watching with bated breath as they come forward with it. Hera, Sobek, Cupid, all of which maybe not the top of the top in terms of what we've seen, but it feels good for eUnited. It's so weird to look at both of these drafts, and I still want to lean, at least personally, towards the Knights, but I feel like there's some unconscious bias that's going in there that's coming out for that, because it feels solid for eUnited. They ban out the Raven, the Jingwei, Achilles on the other side, which One more band to go, and it's going to be the Thor. So trying to control that jungle. Still no Nemesis as of yet. Do you think she fits into either of these compositions well?
I don't really love it here for Scream because of the Hebo there for Paul. That is the classic counter matchup. And Kuzenbo also can be really disruptive for Nemesis. I don't think it fits eUnited's draft very well so far. I think it can fit PK's. Nemesis can be a real pain for Hera. I mean, she doesn't have true mobility. She just has a movement speed boost from her 3 and that shield. I think with the Nemesis ultimate, that could be enough to chew through it. With the Ama and the Kuzenbo, that's a lot of dive that you could get going. With the Heimdall now for Zap, that means that he can stay safe enough in the backline that maybe something like a Nemesis could work here for Cubo.
This is an interesting area, and granted, what we've seen historically, Cerberus usually goes solo lane, but at least for Phase 2 so far, we've seen him picked up a lot for that duo lane. Between him and Sobek both being that flexible, means eUnited have maybe that leg up as they go into game. But Camazot's locked in here. Actually, luckily got highlights of this god for the Knights. Really big in the first half of Phase 1. Kind of disappeared since then. But when it comes down to sustain and people who can dive on the side of the Knights, I mean, they've got a lot of kill potential.
Their dive is very good, and Fred did look good on this Camazotz last time we saw him. I don't know how much I love the matchup against Hera in particular is, hello, a Fenrir pick here for Scream in the jungle. The classic Hebo counter pick that we have not seen a whole lot of here in Season 7. I don't think he was on your list, Gore, of gods that haven't seen play quite yet, but he has not seen a lot of play in Season 7. I imagine this is exclusively to try and take down Paul on this Hebo.
He was picked once, and I can even give you the exact week, by Obey of all things, and it looks like that's week 1 of Phase 1, so it's been pretty much all year since we've seen him. That's a long, long time ago. And now he's coming back, but this doesn't feel like a support Fenrir that's going to be coming into us. With that kind of curveball thrown into this, are you thinking eUnited has a chance here?
I like it. If Scream gets ahead, Paul can't play anymore. It's pretty simple. But Kuzenbo does have really good disruptive peel tools that should be there in order to try and get Scream off of him. You got to use a sumo slam to silence. You can't use that watery grave to stop brutalize. But then once you have stopped the brutalize, watery grave is there to try and slow it down. This game is pretty binary for me, Gore. How well does Scream do on this Fenrir is going to really determine if eUnited's able to win Game 1.
Well, he's been unbound. It's time to see if he can get unleashed here as we go into game number 1. Knights versus eUnited. What will this Fenrir bring?
Thanks, Gore and Aggro. It'll be Finch and Mifflin here as we move to Pittsburgh Knights up against eUnited's game number 1. And we've already seen one upset today. Renegades with the 2-0 over Ghost. Could eUnited be in for the same thing here? Do you think that this Fenrir could be the key?
It can either be the key or it could be the straw that broke the camel's back, Finch. There's a lot of counter matchups that PK have into Fenrir. In a team fight, all Scary D has to do is literally dash at him. Now Brutalize is canceled, so Paul should be able to run free. Neilma's got an easy job making sure that he's going to have a hard time maneuvering around that back line. But if Scream does get off to a strong start, if he gets off to a quick start, maybe around level 5, he can start to look for some ganks in mid. If he pulls ahead, Fenrir is one of the best gods for just punishing anyone on the map. His damage output from Unchained is incredibly high. I imagine he maxes that over Brutalize. But it's a lot riding on this Fenrir, man. If he doesn't do well, the rest of United is going to suffer greatly.
You need Fenrir to be able to, at the very least, be able to set up for your squad, bring someone back to the wolves, so to speak, so that they can hopefully feast. Now, not a lot of beads picked up. Maybe a little bit surprising here for the Knights. In response to Fenrir usually wanted to be able to get you out of that ultimate. But they do have a lot of CC in the kit, so perhaps those can be used to allow them to reposition away from the Fenrir or take themselves off the playfield in QO Fred's situation, and then they won't have to worry about it. But that Fenrir, maybe not the only thing interesting to take a look at here in this set. We have been seeing a lot more Kuzenbo lately. We talked about him on the waiting room. Are you a fan? Do you like him getting picked up this often?
I love Kuzenbo. Any god... Well, I love Kuzenbo theoretically. I hate playing against him. Any god that's going to punish me for playing well in a video game that is completely centered around me landing a skill shot, aiming it properly, tracing an enemy god, he could just press 2 and return a ton of damage back to me. It's just a high-value pick. He's one of the best guardians in the game for making sure that the enemy mid laner is going to have a very hard time maneuvering around a team fight, finding the damage output. Sure, you could say that Hera's got some of the best self-heal in the game, and you'd be right, but a lot of her self-heal comes from damage, the ability to do enough damage to make someone want to walk away from you. You're dealing damage to Kuzenbo, you're just hitting yourself in the face.
That's how it'll feel when he tries to stick on you. Perhaps some value from the Polywarp will be coming out from her later on. It looks like the pace of this game, though, might end up being a little bit slower. I'm just used to watching Lazarus from Renegades after that first set where he's always looking for those early ganks. But not going to be the case here. You feel like Fenrir maybe wants to get a little bit online, as does the Camazotz, but I don't know how much longer we can expect Scream to keep playing this slow. He should have stuns online right away, tons of damage from Brutalize, even without the Ragnarok, even without the ultimate. Fenrir has tons of kill potential.
He does, but take a peek at the build that Scream's going for. Looks like that could be a Golden Blade pickup. Might slow him down just a little bit.
That man got plucked in here into the long lane, so maybe not a whole lot of action. If this is the Golden Blade here for the Fenrir, do you like that pickup for him? Does he need the extra clear speed?
I think it helps out a lot, just considering that he's going to want to maneuver around the jungle, make sure that his abilities are up. He is a jungler that is completely reliant on that jump to make sure that he gets the kill potential. And if he's maxing out the jump as well, you don't want to have to use it on the camp. So Golden Blade should just expedite a little bit of that process, but it's going to sacrifice a lot of the damage, the CDR that you'd expect to get picked up by Fenrir. Normally, we even see him go a more bruiser-centric build, but with Golden Blade, it means that he's going to have to wait till 3rd or 4th item slot to look for any sort of utility. It means that he's going to be looking for early game kills the second he gets those boots online, and it seems like he is going to go for the boots before the Golden Blade, so maybe even a stone cutting coming up. It's a very interesting build.
Yeah, I'm curious to keep our eye on Scream. Not only does Scream like to play his own gods, but he likes to build them his own way. So maybe I set you up a bit for failure there by asking you to predict that, man. No one knows how the god can think. We can only watch and hopefully learn from Scream. So later on, we'll check in with him. But certainly not the only one I think worth keeping their eye on. Cubo Fred took his back a little bit earlier than we saw Scream take his. Already has the tier 2 boots. So I'm interested to see where he might elect to go, Cubo Fred, on this Camazotz. We already talked about how that ultimate gives him such great chase potential, takes him up and out of the fight, and gives him all this extra safety too, plus the sustain. Might not be the easiest thing in the world for eUnited to try and deal with this Cam.
Yeah, Cubo's also got a very strong matchup into Gaijay here. If he just ganks out Duo, finds the slow, Gaijay's best self-peel tool is that ultimate. All you have to do is use Bat Out of Hell, and you've immediately avoided it while continually raining damage down. So I imagine we do see him try and work his way over towards Duo eventually, but because they also have a largely immobile god in the mid lane inside of eUnited, this Hera could be under a lot of pressure from Cubo.
But you gotta think with 3 blinks online for Pittsburgh Knights, and it's not just like side lanes, it's in the middle of their team fight. They're gonna be wanting to look for action. Scary D is low over in solo, got hit by the Stygian Torment, and Variety close to being able to find some solo potential. But Scary D has the movement speed, has gotten out of range, is running towards the mid lane to try and get away, and Variety's not there. Arcus is off the mark from Whirlwind, and in comes Neomon to provide the peel. Instead, it's Whirlwind that goes down for first blood. He just came in to help, and instead, Paul cuts him down with the crushing wave.
What a nice blink from Cubo there to immediately cut off the rotation path from Hurrywind, and also the string that is his life for First Blood. I mean, that's a heads-up play from the mid laner and jungler to path low there, especially considering the pathing that we saw from the solo. I mean, heads up, and you want to keep that pace going. Cubo picking up First Blood for the mid laner, Paul, putting him ahead of this Hera is going to speed up that strength phase. He's going to make it a lot harder for this Fenrir to get value to ganking this Hebo. Now his damage is going to come online a lot quicker. Sure, Brutalize chases Crushing Wave, but Hebo still has 3 ultimates in his kit.
And how do you feel if you're Variety? You push Scary D down to kill threshold, he runs away, and it ends up getting First Blood for the other team. I mean, what more does this man have to do? I guess you gotta finish the job, because otherwise it could end up going the other direction. But this could be a gank now onto Variety. Cubo is coming top side, and Variety's low and does not have the ultimate, but gets back towards the tower safely. Now the counter gank is here. Scream leaping in, finds the stun, but not the Ragnarok, which means the ultimate from the Fenrir wasted this time around, and Knights come out ahead.
That's tough, and you know what? You just got a lot of value off of not buying beads if you're Cubo.
Exactly right, Variety. Still in some trouble. Stygian Torment, though, gets him out of it. As Scary D has to respond with his own, but not enough to save him. Cubo Fred gets the kill in the end anyway, and suddenly the Knights on the right side of the map, where I thought eUnited had pressure, have been able to find 2 kills in a row.
2 kills, 2,000 gold, a ton of map pressure as well. I mean, just take a peek at the state of the game. Take a peek at that mid tower. eUnited are already at about half health there. If PK can find one more pick and take down that tower, it's going to open them up towards a lot of really easy objectives. eUnited is going to need to return some of this pressure.
Zap, though, does not have to worry about the stun, but still the gap gets closed by Guy. Good use of beads there to get him out of the knockup, but Zapman turns it around with that ultimate. That's nasty. Should be able to complete that in just a moment. No, he can't. Guy lands back down and somehow gets the better of him. Zap should have been able to close that one out, you'd have thought. Plus, there was action elsewhere, too. Neil Maw fell as well as Scream. Action all across the map, and now there's a little bit of trouble here for Snoopy. Up into the bat, out of the hell, goes Cubo Fred, but it's not enough damage to get the kill, and now Heroin has chase potential, but no abilities there. Paul comes in from top side, and Heroin low again. It was slow for a little while, but all of a sudden, it's all kicking off.
Man, this is a lot of fighting in the early game, and you would have expected this from eUnited, especially considering they've got more beads on their side, they've got this Fenrir in the game, a lot of aggressive picks that can rotate out early, but it seems like it's PK kind of setting that pace, especially on that solo side of the map.
Scary D has Dazzling Offensive that should help him get out of this, but Stygian Torment perfectly timed by Variety, and the 2v1 ends up being way too much for Scary D to handle. So that evens the kills up 3-3, but doesn't really alleviate this gold deficit, about 2,000 in favor of PK.
And Scream deciding to use his beads there, bit of a questionable play. Scary's dead just about every single day of the week, so at least now he got the trade for that relic, opening up that Fenrir to a little bit more pressure. Could find himself needing it in a team fight, so now he's likely going to play a little bit more passively. Still hasn't finished up that katana, has Scream. I'm really concerned about where he's going to go with it. I'm thinking it's going to have to be Stone Cutting Sword, which would open up toward that more auto-attack centric build, meaning that he's going to deal a ton of damage to objectives, especially considering Seething Howl, but it's such a slow pickup. You'd really expect a mace to get picked up in that slot.
Does anyone else get more power by hitting one button than Fenrir does when he's got that Seething Howl fully leveled? It's such a strong stem for him, so we'll see how Scrim leverages that in the late game as Guy continuing to get aggressive after getting the better of the veteran early on. In fact, using the dash to reposition, forcing Zap to go into the Bifrost to retreat, and is able to go towards back a lot of company in his favor, but what are the rest of the Knights going to do now? Neil Maw collapsing topside, moves in with the push. Paul there waiting, but Snoopy goes into the ult and will not save him. Paul has the crushing wave, and Snoopy ends up falling. So Zapman gets the better out of that one by retreating towards his friends and setting up for that Snoopy kill.
Man, I mean, my heart goes out to Snoopy there because he was playing it right. He was camping around the Bifrost, making sure that he knew that Guy J was going to force him to use it there. So he wanted to see if he might be able to finish up the kill on his own. But PK with that counter rotation just kind of sneaks up behind him, catches him out. You're not trapping Zapman. We've trapped you here. They pick up a kill in return, but it's not really opening up the map too much. No objectives really easy to go for here. Zap having his ultimate forced out means that there's a ton of kill pressure.
And Guy is feeling himself today. This 1 minute doing a ton of work for Zapman, but Guy drops the heart so we can take the 1v1. But you gotta hit some autos, Guy, if you want to win this one, and he just does it. Zapman getting the better of him, putting the young man to bed, and they're in the middle lane, pulling back in. Neil Maw and Heroin finds another, so it ends up being 1-for-1 across the map. Guy falls in duo as Neil falls in mid, but that's one where the Cupid was way ahead and certainly should have won.
I mean, you said it right there. He should have won that fight. He just needed to land 3 auto attacks, but Zapman, just a cool head under pressure, just outplays him. I'm looking it in my mind's eye right now, and I can see Zapman just going as he puts him down there. It's absolutely nuts, the calm that it takes to take that fight, knowing that there's really no way that he should have won, but still somehow coming out ahead. And even just take a peek at the build. Guy J already has Transcendence fully stacked. Zapman just now starts stacking his 6 there. That fight was 100% in Cupid's favor.
Certainly was. Guy, I think, going to be kicking himself there. Had a chance to really put that Heimdall down if they could have found 2 kills on him in a row. Instead, it just adds to the Knights' momentum, as I'm sure Zap feels himself after taking the battle up against the young gun from behind and coming out ahead. And really, we knew the Knights, I felt like, were going to be aggressive with all these blinks they picked up. They were not thinking defensively with beads at all. And just like we're seeing now, they're moving into the Chaos side jungle, looking to pick fights. But Scream staying back, not going to take any battles, not going to rise to their aggression. So the Knights have to go look for farm elsewhere.
with the state of the map, we might even see PK look for the Pyromancer before they go to gold just to leverage the Amaterasu passive. Scream looking for a little bit of pressure.
This is trouble for Scary D. They've been looking to bully him all game long, but the Stygian Torment was not there this time. Scary D narrowly avoids what could have been a tough situation. Scream, or Cubo rather, making his way over there. Not in time to help with Scary D, but is in time to make sure that they can't just push these waves under tower, and helps him defend his wave. Scream and Variety still lurking. Scream still has the ultimate, pulls Cubo Fred back in, and that does have Cubo low, but a good silence from Scary hits both of them. Neil Ma is nearby too, but Scary D alongside Cubo have the damage, and Scream goes down first, but lurking in the water, Snoopy, he leaves Scary D, comes back towards Cubo Fred to guarantee the 1-for-1.
I like how Cubo tried to play that fight. He tried to sit in the vampiric pool just for a little bit and get some of that sustain back, but the counter rotation was just a little bit too much, and he's going to lose out on his life there. But he turns what could have been just a 1-for-none off of Scream's ultimate into a 1-for-1. That's about as good as you could have hoped for in that situation. It's interesting to see Scream go for that proactive play, especially considering he was completely He couldn't use his jump. There's no brutalize, just 100% reliant on those auto attacks. And when you're auto attacking against an Amaterasu, she's just got a passive that's going to make it better.
Yeah, that was a bit curious, right? And you're bringing them back into Variety, who we already knew had used the ultimate, right? So the follow-up wasn't stellar in that fight, especially in a world where Scary D was still nearby to provide some support. So, a bit of a risky play there from Scream. It does at least end up resulting in a 1-for-1, though, so no harm, no foul. Speaking of Scream, as the red buff, considering an invade here is Neil, he'll blink in and force out the beads from Irwin. Scream ends up going the stone-cutting sword. You said we might see more of an attack speed, or not attack speed, but auto-attack focus build here from Scream. Perhaps that's where we're going.
That's the best way to get consistent damage output from your Fenrir, but this third item, maybe a Shifter's Shield? I can't read Scream, man, and it seems like they can't read the gold tree going down.
It's low, but out comes the Fields of Love from Guy. That forces the reset. Into the back line goes Scary D. They've got Snoopy locked down. That will be the first head claimed by the Pittsburgh Knights. The second one, though, is having to take a look at Muspelheim. He's being sent through the realms. Cubo Fred gets one. Zapman gets the third. And just like that, PK are up 3-0 and heading towards the Fury.
Just a disjointed engagement from eUnited there, just kind of walking in one-on-one. They gave PK just separate one-on-two or one-on-one engagements where they're really not favored, especially considering the gold state already, now 4,000 in favor of PK just about. Paul has been left alone the entirety of the game. This Hebo has been under zero pressure, which is what Aggro called out earlier. That's the best matchup the Fenrir has on the map, but it seems like Scream's much more content just kind of hanging out in the solo lane and keeping Scary D down, and that hasn't particularly worked out either. Scary D's 2-1-3. This Fenrir needs to start spreading the wealth towards the center of the map, at least force out Paul's beads and open up to some kills later on, but so far he's just been allowed to free farm. He's got Soul Gem already, Rada Tahuti. He's going an incredibly expensive build, and no one's punishing him.
It's a greedy build, really. Not even any pen this early on. He wants to make sure that he's burning through these squishies when they come to play. And I think that Paul's going to have the ability to do exactly just that here with this build. You mentioned it, man. He's not really under any pressure. Paul has been coasting so far, just kind of following up. Though Pyromancer being looked at, but eUnited give it up right away. They see a little bit of presence coming out from Knights, maybe a lot of bit of pressure, I understated it there, but they eventually end up dropping the Pyromancer, fall back, and PK continue to control this map.
They're controlling the entire map. I mean, we haven't looked at dual lane in a little bit ever since that solo kill, but now Zap's 2 levels up as well.
Well, it makes some sense, right? Getting the better of Guy there really pushed him out to a more comfortable position. All of Pittsburgh Knights on the right side of the map now. So they'll start up the Pyromancer and should have it down quite low. They do indeed. United are nearby and watchful, but all they can do is watch. The Pyromancer belong to the Order side team. The Fury belong to the Order side team. Everything so far has favored PK as the United struggling a bit to remain competitive. Even the charge prey from Snoopy off the mark means he has to use the ultimate defensively just to stay alive.
And it forces Hurrywin to use his ultimate defensively as well. With no more neutral objectives available on the map, I imagine we see PK back up, spend up the gold they've already got, and then start to group up on either this left side tower or the mid tower just to open up the map a little bit, force an engagement while they have a lead.
Scary being chased out. Dazzling offensive actually led him towards more trouble in the form of Hurrywin, and that easy kill for him to clean up while inside the mouth of Scream. So Scary D gets punished by the 3-man rotation towards right. But really, what can eUnited do with it? A heavy commitment to find even the one kill. They're thankful for it, but really no way to turn that into more.
Yeah, there's nothing left on the map. They just kind of have to spin their wheels for a little bit until a comeback mechanic literally respawns. Looking at Primal Fury, looking at Pyromancer in a couple of minutes as well. But for now, United can maybe look to try and push down this tier 1 tower in solo. But with Cuvo there, he's not going to make it easy, especially considering he's got a 2-level lead over Scream.
Wait, look at these boots for Heroin. How have we let him go this far into the game without roasting him for having the defensive boots picked up? The rest of eUnited, though, are going to force down the tier 1 tower over in right. Snoopy rotating over here as well. So eUnited really wanted to make sure they had the tower. And this is what we've seen from eUnited as a bit of a trend here lately. They're starting to try and group up on the right side of the map and just see what they can get away with.
Man, I guess I gotta go back to it. You told me to roast him. I'll never not take an opportunity to roast somebody. It just says, well, he's worried about the dive. And you know what? I can't roast him for it because the dive potential from PK is so high. He's got to be worried about Neil, Cuvo, Scary D. Finch, I wanna yes and you there, bud, but I think I kind of agree with these tank boots and following it up with Divine Ruin and the Chronos Pendant as well. He's bringing a lot of utility to his team. Hurriwin's job is to survive the initial dive and then wait for the rest of his team, United, to get the counter engaged. So I think this is the right build path.
You're right. As we talk about Heroin under pressure, Neomall blinks in and forces out the beat. And look at this, even more pressure in right. Scream showing some presence here yet again. That does get Scary D to use the ultimate in response. Guy is stuck underneath the tier 1 tower, drops the ultimate at his feet, has to use Aegis to get away from Cuvo Fred's damage, and it works. Snoopy not quite able to connect the charge spray that likely would have guaranteed the death of Cuvo Fred, but Heroin falls in mid even with the tank boots unable to survive, and that means yet another kill going the way of the Knights.
Another kill, another tower, and there's so much pressure on the left side of the map, we might see Knights just continually push down mid or regroup for this team fight.
And they are going to regroup. Variety's the one that ends up falling. The Knights are stepping on the gas, aren't they? As they start to pressure the tier 2 tower here in mid. Cuvo, Fred, and Zapman are there, and Scream can't hope to defend this one on his own. Some help is coming, though, as Snoopy rounds the corner. The Titan, or the tower rather, getting lower and lower. Good push to peel Scream off of him.
Oh my
now
god!
The tower's still putting in shots, but Zapman finally gets there. Scream ends up falling, and the Pittsburgh Knights are taking whatever they want.
Look, if you're going to ignore Paul, just completely ignore his existence for 18 minutes, he's going to remind you that he's on the map when it's time. Now he's really starting to get some of this damage online. I mean, we saw it there. Just 3-1, that's 80-90% of Scream's health bar. Now, immediately, after taking its 2 tier 1s and a tier 2, they get back up to this Primal Fury. The gold lead is huge, but they haven't spent any of it yet. The majority of it's likely all in pocket. PK is going to hit a huge power spike and likely just move themselves into the Fire Giant and force another fight.
This has been dominance from PK, and I said earlier today when we were talking about which matchups we wanted to focus on the most, that the Knights had looked a bit shaky here this phase, but this feels like a return to form for them. Paul, on his signature Hebo pick, 4-0-2, having an excellent slash line. Scary D, despite all the pressure he's been under, it has been a hell of a lot of pressure. He's 3-2-3, level 19, and 3 levels ahead of Variety's Cerberus. I mean, this has been every single lane going the Knights' way. What about Guy earlier having every advantage over Zapman, then losing the 1v1? All the coin flips are coming up Knights right now as they start up this fire. eUnited are lurking in the wings. I say that, but really only Variety lurking in the wings, and him just barely. The Knights are going to get this FG for free.
Well, not for free. Guy J might get a tier 1 tower and Scream stole some back camp, so I'd say worth if you ask me. But it seems like PK have already figured it out. They know where the entirety of United is, so they can take down this tier 2 for absolutely free as well. This is just a weird defense from United. Sure, you might not want to take the fight inside the jungle, but you at least have to put up some sort of defense on these structures. It's so much just passive gold that's going to go the way of PK, and still, there's no defense, and with Neilma rotating over to Duo, you don't even get a tier 2 tower. United, 12,000 gold down, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
It is going to get worse here for them. I don't know what their base defense looks like. How do you like their chances when trying to hold the Knights out of the base? Because, I mean, they're down a ton of gold, right? Obviously, that part is in favor of the Knights. But just in terms of their picks, they've got some good counter-initiation tools at their disposal.
They do, but a lot of the engage tools that they have that they were going to need to use to make sure that PK can't move into the Phoenix are going to be very one-note and very easy to counter by PK's draft. We might see Scream jump in and look for the ultimate. Well, Paul's just going to one-shot him. We might see Variety try and go in for the Stygian Torment and try and disrupt the backline of PK. Paul's gonna one-shot him. If anyone else is moving up, Zapman's got fantastic self-heal for himself out of the ultimate. Scary D's got some of the best engage in the game, dazzling offensive. It's gonna be very hard for United to keep the waves out. I think it's a lot's gonna ride on how well Gaijay utilizes Fields of Love and how well Hurrywin is able to deal damage to the priority targets in the backline, which is a lot easier said than done.
Scream able to avoid Scary D in the jungle. It looks like a 3-2 split with 3 in mid and 2 in left. Variety trying to defend that middle Phoenix. Stygian Torment forces Scary D's dazzling offensive in response. There's Argus. Not a ton of value, does end up landing, but really doesn't do much damage. So now the Pittsburgh Knights gonna change up how they're positioning. Paul seems to be the one in the mid that's switching between, floating between. He'll go to whichever lane he thinks he has more kill potential.
I love this slow push from PK. They're trying to whittle down the utility that eUnited have. Already, they've taken away Cerberus ult, Cupid ult's down as well. Hurrywin's working on getting his back up. I mean, there's just so much that eUnited have, but it's so easy to take away when you have a lead like this.
Well, here's the third one. It's the Ragnarok coming out from Scream, and this time it works. It actually brings Scary D down low, but look at the damage. Almost has the turnaround onto this Fenrir, but that is huge. They got the first pick. They took care of Scary. Cubo trades it out with the Bat out of Hell, so that makes it 1-for-1, but it was worth it. The left side Phoenix is already down, Myth. The Knights may have lost Scary, but they'll make that trade every day of the week.
And now eUnited have no ultimates left. Paul still has his, as does Neilmod. This is going to be a pretty easy push. Anyone steps one step too far on the side of eUnited, Crushing Wave's going to do just that. It's going to crush them.
And they're still doing the 3-1 split. They've got Cubo Fred threatening in right, and the rest of the Knights are threatening here in mid, where the Heimdall is, where he has all this burn potential on the middle Phoenix. But it looks like the Knights are going to pull up at least a little bit, heading back towards the farm. Cubo Fred backing up as well. They got their one Phoenix. They lost Scary. They're still up a bajillion gold. I think they've got plenty of time to try and make this work, especially with fire falling off the next 30 seconds. They're just going to reset.
That's a fine call. They've got so much on the map already. As you said, a literal bajillion gold. Couldn't pay me to do the math. I'm that dumb. But there's so much left on the map now. They strip away the enemy jungle. They take away that red and purple. Gold Fury's respawning pretty soon. I'd be surprised if PK don't go ahead and try and take that away. Remove the option for United to trade objectives when PK does decide to group up around that Fire Giant. And now they have to contend with Fire Minion waves leaking down the hardest side of the map to defend, the furthest away from the Fire Giant. And this is what I was worried about earlier. The comeback potential of a team comp that has Fenrir in it is very low. Fenrir traditionally already just a very early game god, and now he's deciding to go this more bruiser build, picking up the sledge and some straight up defense. When you're this far behind, defense isn't going to help you out a lot. No matter how much you build, Paul's still going to be able to one-shot you. I think I would have preferred to see Scream go for maybe a Heartseeker or a Brawler's Beatstick, just some raw damage, so that even if he is trading out his life, he's going to be dealing a ton of damage in return.
They were able to get that pick onto Scary last time, but we saw the cost. It was a left side Phoenix. They definitely couldn't kill him fast enough in that last fight, so perhaps a little bit of extra damage would have helped in that regard. I was going to ask you as the next question, do you come out to defend this Fire Giant if you're eUnited, or do you wait back on Phoenixes? They're coming out a little bit, but I don't really think they're planning on contesting.
I think if anything, you just show a soft defense. Don't commit yourself. Sure, you could show your face and potentially just slow PK down, but it's just the most dangerous spot to be on the map. And not to just keep harping on how sick Paul is, but instead of electing to pick up some more damage himself, now he has Mantle of Discord. So if Scream does decide to commit himself there, he's going to have to work through a lot of that defense, and he doesn't have the damage items to burn through it. He's lacking a lot of penetration. It's going to come down to those auto attacks through Stone Cutting Sword, and against a Hebo, you're not going to get many opportunities to use them.
At this point, Myth, I hope they did not pick the Fenrir for this Hebo, because he hasn't touched him once, right? I mean, Hebo's had an easy game, and whoa, Snoopy just got deleted. I assume he'll come back, from his trip through those various regions right now. Zapman is the one that got the kill credit for that one. They have 3 members threatening over and right, make it 4 as Cubo joins, and they're leaving Scary D to be the solo agent, but Paul deletes Guy J from the map, blinks in, knock up into the water hands, and we'll see Guy J 55 seconds later. Right side Phoenix comes down, Scary D burning through the mid Phoenix all on his lonesome, and that means now eUnited have the 5, or rather Pittsburgh Knights have the 5v3 to move on to the Titan. I don't see how eUnited can keep them out at this point. They still have the crushing wave in the back pocket. There it is, Scream. Takes a dive. He did not want to take Scary D very thorough, and that's it. Take us to game 2 because eUnited are done.
Man, Paul, it's Paul. It's 100% Paul, and it's because eUnited allowed it to be Paul. He was allowed to free farm the entire game. He never used his ultimate defensively. He barely used it aggressively because he was so far ahead that he was able to just hold on to it and kill them anyway. I mean, I think that might have been the first time I saw Paul commit himself like that with Crushing Wave, and he hits 2 members and the Titan as well. You're going to have to address him. You can't play around this man. You can't ignore him. Put some pressure in the mid lane.
There were a lot of issues with the early. Obviously, they didn't put enough pressure on the Hobwa. I don't know if the right side focus worked for them either over in solo, as obviously it was an easy game for Scary. I think a lot to try and change here for eUnited if they want to fix this one and turn this set around. We'll be back with that game 2 and the desk, though, after this quick break.
Replaying your words there in my head. When you're not here, I'm stuck in bed. I'm starting to break. I'm starting to break. I'm starting to break down. Watch all of the bullets fall to the ground. You took a shot and I'm yours now. But I'm starting to break. I'm starting to break down. Break down. Break down. Break down. Could be the one now.
Well, that guy in the bumper was running from Cthulhu, much like it felt like eUnited were constantly running from the Knights throughout that game. A couple of good fights and skirmishes for them, but aggro, you know, we get really excited when we see Fenrir locked in there. You say Scream has to go big, and he just didn't. I guess is the best way to, just direct to the point. He just didn't.
Yeah, I set it up as a pretty binary game. If Scream has a great game, I think eUnited has a pretty good shot if he's able to shut down Paul, and he did not shut down Paul in any way, shape, or form in that game. A lot of Scream's time early on was spent really on that right side of the map, and that's maybe because they felt like they needed to try and keep this Amaterasu down, but that's the thing about Ama is that you can't. The god's just too good. Scary was still able to make a massive impact on this game out of the solo lane. Paul goes 6-0-4. You're picking the Fenrir to camp the Hebo. At least that's why. That's the only reason you should be picking Fenrir. There are a lot of other assassins that can camp solo just as well, if not better, than Fenrir can. So if you aren't picking it to camp the mid laner Hebo, then you should have picked something else. And it seemed like eUnited's picks and ban strategy and actual in-game strategy did not come together very well in this game.
Yeah, they just didn't have the full link that you expect to see, but you'll get to watch a lot of, well, my personal favorite god in the game, so it's not too surprising that I'm happy to watch Paul do well. But 6-0-4 seems a little bit overkill for anybody overall. An 8.0 KDA for the game as well. I mean, it just felt like it was difficult to slow him down even as they progressed into the late game. There wasn't a lot to try and bounce that one back. And we kind of had highlighted it going in that it was, at least for the top three, I would argue all 5 picks for the Knights, felt pretty scary and comfortable for them. So letting all those through, maybe United go back to the drawing board for this one. At this rate, we've gotten used to seeing 3-game sets for them, so now it is pretty much a do-or-die moment. But, I mean, was that one more fundamentals? Like you said, the pick and ban strategy seemed to be one thing that was good. It just didn't come into the execution that they had in the game.
I just think their draft and the way they played it did not mesh well, and those are games that you can kind of write off as, we tried something, it didn't really work. Now I want to see what else they have in the bank in terms of strategies. Let's switch up our picks and ban style. Let's go for something else and see how well we can execute on that this time around, because eUnited, like you said, has really shown a great propensity to bouncing back in game number 2s. It's not like they often win game 1 and then lose 2 in a row. A lot of times they do lose game number 1 and then find a way to win game number 2 in spite of that. So we'll see if they're able to do it here.
Well, hey, it's time to figure out what they're going to do in game number 2. So we're going to picks and bans here to see if it's going to be a repeat strategy for them or something completely new as they shuffle it around. Honestly, when it came down to bans, I'm almost surprised in a matchup like this. It kind of feels like you maybe want to stylize the bans more towards your opponent. But at the same time, I don't want to let through any of those strong picks for them either. It just feels like a lose-lose scenario. No matter who you ban, there's still someone available on the other side.
It's kind of how it is right now in competitive Smite. There's a lot of strong picks available for you to take, which I think is a way more fun area for the game to be in. When every god is like, okay, or something like that, it's not as fun. You want to be like, oh my god, they let Persephone through, or I can't believe this team got Cthulhu again. Like that's what makes competitive Smite fun and the drafting phase really fun, at least for me. So times like this in the meta where I think a lot of things are very strong are the most fun to work on and to watch.
We'll have to see. Again, so far, pretty much the exact same thing down here. Both of those main magical carries banned away by the Knights. Hebo taking a seat, though, this time by eUnited, recognizing what Paul was able to bring. Last time they also banned a Rom. We'll have to see if eUnited want to keep that one up. But instead, it's the Knights that are going to ban out Cthulhu. I mean, same bans, worked out in Game 1. I don't see why they wouldn't want to ban it here in Game 2. And you had mentioned here, as it was the ROM last game, you would have much rather seen it be something like an Amaterasu. I think Umoja, Hercules, all of these still fit. But this time around, it will be that Ama ban. There's still a lot on the table for the Knights, though. So did eUnited shuffle things around enough that they're going to be able to get some good power picks?
Maybe, but PK is going to get Umoja here, and that is... I think Umoja is probably the best god in all of competitive Smite. I think she's better than Ama, and better than Cthulhu, and better than Persephone, and certainly better than the magical ADCs. I just think that this is the premier god right now. Now, that doesn't mean that eUnited has lost by any stretch. There are a lot of things that you can do in order to still win against this character. I think that I'm just saying that to put in perspective how highly I value this pick, and Neil has looked very, very strong on this goddess for some time. eUnited's going to get a chance to get their choice of Cupid or Rom. They decided to go to the Rom. Gaijay, not a particularly inspired performance on that Cupid last game. So I think that does make some sense, but Cupid is, in general, sometimes better against Umoja because that cripple can shut down the Riptide. But going Rom Nemesis as a return 2 is good for eUnited here, and now you don't have to worry about the Hebo sort of counter pick coming back at you because that's what eUnited banned.
Yeah, it's looking already off to a better start here for eUnited. I'm excited to see specifically Scream on the Nemesis and what he'll be able to bring. But the ROM as well, and again, this is the second time I'm doing this today, and I'm kind of surprised I'm finding myself in this position. But I want to see eUnited take some notes from Obey. Obey have been doing much better by picking the same picks every time. If it works for you once, you'll just keep going for it until someone has to ban it from you. WoW has played, I think, nothing but Cupid mainly for the last, 3 weeks. So if that's going to work for GuyJ, then it's going to work for GuyJ. Lock in that ROM and keep him going to it. But Cupid hell on the other side. The Cupid going to be someone that's been touted as a Nemesis counter. And hell, we used to talk about it. Paul doesn't even regard her as his pick. But let's be honest, it's such a good pickup for their mid laner here on the Knights.
Absolutely. It brings so much in terms of damage and sustain and utility with that cleanse. The Cabrakan's an interesting choice here from eUnited. It can wall in everybody so far. You can get that slow immunity by hitting the 1, so you know you won't have to worry about Hell's really only form of range CC at all, which is that slow. I like this Cabrakan pick, but it is very telegraphed CC. So if you aren't going on Paul exactly, he's going to be able to switch stance and really get whoever is getting stun locked out of danger pretty easily with this selection. But so far, so good here for eUnited. I really do like their top 3 quite a bit.
Well, they ban out the Achilles, and Poseidon is the answer back from the Knights. So maybe a lot of lockdown, trying to protect Paul more than anything and shut down Herwind here for eUnited. As that's also the Cucullin. So both targets towards the solo lane there for the Knights. And at this point, along with the Amaterasu, I kind of don't disagree with him. Scary D, when he's comfortable, is frightening to play against, and he's frightening to see what he can accomplish. Against any team in the league, he's been able to zone out a lot. So it's a good call, in my eyes, from eUnited. And then both mid laners, the Poseidon already highlighted, but the Aphrodite going to be joining him in the bans down there. So eUnited maybe having to reach a little deep into the pockets here to pull out something different for Herwind.
Could go back to the Hera. Not a great game 1 for it, but think that you could always reprise that. Thoth is interesting. There's a little bit more follow-up oriented than something like Hera. Hera kind of a play starter in my mind. Thoth is a finisher. You know, he's coming in with that big damage with Final Judgment. He's going to start fights with poke, but then really try and be that follow-up damage off of Cabrakan CC, off of that damage coming from Rom. There's a lot of long-range damage already here for eUnited between the Thoth and the Rom snipes. And then the Nemesis and Cabrakan like to come up close and personal, which is why I love this Hunbat's pick. Just something that can spread the fights out, get this Cabrakan off me, get this Nemesis off me, and force you into a Purification Beads early when you might have wanted to go Blink. I quite like the Hunbat's pick. The Wukong pick is kind of neither exciting nor disappointing for Scary. This is a that's kind of what Wukong does. It's
yeah.
I don't want to say vanilla because vanilla is like my favorite ice cream flavor. That should surprise nobody. But it is your totally okay, 5 out of 10, never upset about it sort of selection over there in the solo lane.
Sun Wukong has left you very whelmed. You are just there.
Yes,
and so he's
in
coming
a state of whelm.
We'll have to see if he does anything fancy to maybe change the way we feel about it, but it's Cerberus over there for eUnited. Some interesting picks that are coming through for them. Have they changed it that things can go their way, or is it still pretty much just the Scream show? If he does well, everybody wins, or can he maybe relax a little bit this game?
eUnited has definitely changed enough to the point where they can end up winning this game too. I like their draft a lot more in this game. It's a little bit more, it has more overall synergy. They're doing what they consider good instead of trying to just counteract what PK is doing, in my mind. Not to say that they don't have counter picks. I mean, you've got the Cabrakan ultimate to try and lock in Hell, Cupid, Umoja. But overall, I like United's draft much, much more. They just cannot fall behind early because PK's draft snowballs incredibly well. Sustained comps always do. You've got this Hell that's going to start doing 1 billion damage. The sustain from PK is going to be very, very hard to match. eUnited is going to have to find a way to steamroll some team fights with some really good ultimates.
You said sustain. I was like, yeah, there's a hell, but then I realized, oh yeah, Cupid, Yamoja, also Wukong lives forever. It's going to be difficult to take down the Knights when it gets to the late game state, so a lot for eUnited to try and tackle here, but they've been giving us 3-game sets. Let's see if they can do it again.
That's a good point there, Gore, that eUnited are the 3-game team. They seem to take the sets the full distance, so perhaps they can do that here today. I'd lost some faith after that game 1, but I'm glad we got Gore out there to keep my optimism rolling. Here, Myth, how do you feel about this Knights draft that they've got here for themselves? I know you're worried here, maybe a little bit too stacked up on sustain, but if Paul's on hell, I have a hard time leaning any other way.
Yeah, I'll never argue with Paul on hell. I mean, you really nailed it down. It's one of his signature picks. But with this much healing on your comp, it means that Ankh is going to get that much more value. Every single anti-heal item is going to get that much more value. Every single person on eUnited should likely have anti-heal somewhere slotted in their kits, if not in their relics. And when you have that much healing, it means you're sacrificing a little bit somewhere else, maybe team fight ability or huge AoE damage. But seeing how PK has been playing, I'm not too concerned about it. I think that the Sun Wukong pick is a little bit sleeper. I mean, we heard Aggro and Gore say they were just whelmed. With 72 transformations getting changed recently, you don't have to max it out to get that huge duration stun. Now, at rank 1, you're getting the full second off of Cat form, meaning that you can max out Master's Will. With Soul Eater being changed, this god gets a ton of sustain in lane, as well as just cooldown reduction and penetration very early on in the build. I think Sun Wukong's in a pretty healthy spot right now.
Hey, I'd be excited to see Scary D maybe prove us a little bit wrong with all our pessimism about the Wukong right now. So, especially after that game 1, we'll certainly see how it is that he plays it. Perhaps game 1 was factoring in a little bit. He knew he was the focus, so good luck killing him on the Wukong. But there's a lot of places to look here right now. We do not see Yamoja make it through a lot at all right now, Myth. She's just the best support in the game. I believe it was Slaney that tweeted, "We'd think this is the most OP god in the game she wanted to support, but wait, maybe I gotta focus on the dual lane. Look how low Zapman is. Just barely making out of that one alive."
I mean, there's Yamoja making a stand for her own strengths immediately. What other god is going to stun you to slow down your engage, and then immediately stun you again 2 seconds later to stop you from finishing off the kill on Zap, and then just auto-attacks his buddy back to full health? Yamoja is insane. Aggro said he thinks he's the best god in the game right now as far as competitive goes, and I can't argue. She brings sustain, engage, mobility for everyone on your team, and anti-mobility for the enemy team. You just got huge walls to lock down a team fight, which is incredibly potent inside the jungle. I think Yamoja is rightfully banned in, 80% of the games? I think it's insane that we saw United decide to let it go here, and it's because in their first phase of bans, they decided to dedicate it to Hivo and Amaterasu. Just a little bit of fear after what happened last game.
Perhaps well-founded, but I think that you're going to find giving Neil Ma strong picks is not a winning formula in the long run. I'm a big fan of saying that Neil was one of the big ones that stepped up for the Knights when they made their World Championship run. And he may not always hit those same heights, but he's always got the potential. I think giving him Yamoja might be a step too far. He'll certainly get his chance to prove it to us here. I know you and I, Miff, when we're talking about how we expected this game to go, and you were expecting this would maybe be a bit of a longer one, at least considering the Knights' picks. Zapman narrowly avoids trouble yet again, but it's Snoopy who's low. Neil Ma can't kill him on his own. How do you expect these two teams to approach the pace of this game?
I think both teams have very strong team comps that scale well into the late game. I mean, take a peek at eUnited. Nemesis, Thoth, Ram, even Cerberus gets a lot of value come late game, so I'm sure they'd be all pretty comfortable waiting it out. But then you look at PK, and they've got 3 healers who are always going to be the best thing you can have in the late game once those elongated Gold Fury and Fire Giant fights really start to kick off. But considering just where we are and what type of picks we have, the aggression coming out of this duo lane, it could go pretty quickly for PK in their favor if they are able to find just a quick kill or two over here. I think Snoopy's going to be under a lot of kill pressure the second PK ticks over to level 5. Just Yamoja plus Cupid means that even if Kabrakan's slow immune and he can run through Fields of Love, if he's stuck between 2 tsunamis, he's not running anywhere.
Looked like Scream was coming in for a gank, but he thinks better of it, starts heading up through the jungle instead of the pathing he was taking along the low side. So Scream not looking for any early game duo ganks, perhaps smarter. Paul and Kyovo were lumped up together too and certainly could have rotated over and perhaps looked for a punish. So this early game remains relatively slow. Remember last game, those first couple of minutes or so were slow, but then all the action started kicking off. So I won't put it beyond these two teams to start swinging for the fences as soon as they get comfortable in this match. And to talk a little bit more about eUnited, I mean, it really feels like Scream is doing kind of his own thing, right? Picking his own gods and building them his own way. But the results are a bit hit or miss. What do you need to see from Scream here in this game if eUnited are going to be able to take us to a third game?
Man, I was going to say that I would like to see him play a little bit more standard, but it seems like Huvo's not going to give him the chance. Blinking in with the ultimate, trying to find Snoopy out here, but not quite enough damage to finish it off. I think Scream is just an interesting player in general because he doesn't care what everyone else is doing. If you see a nemesis in your game, you expect him to go Golden Blade, but it doesn't seem like it.
Snoopy, though, is stuck inside the River's Rebuke. Final Judgment from Whirlwind comes out, but doesn't really end up causing much difference. The Knights are on the board first, and the kills going over to Cuvo Fred on this Unbots to accelerate him even a little bit further. Plus, all three are rotating over here towards Solo, Neil, Cuvo, and Scary D. They might not be done looking for aggression as they push Variety out.
It looked to me like PK was worried about Scream looking for the blue buff invade since they had just taken a fight in mid. You'd expect, having not seen the jungler there, they're trying to make up somewhere on the map. But now Variety steps up a little bit too far, takes a ton of damage, but they keep hovering around this enemy blue?
Yeah, this is risky if you're Variety. I mean, I know he still has Stitching and Torment, so maybe he's not too scared, but you don't want to end up going too far for it. He ends up making it out of there. They don't really end up contesting the blue, and the Pittsburgh Knights are still A-OK. So the pace still remains a little bit slow. That was really just Neil kind of forcing a fight there in mid with a great ultimate alongside that tier 1 tower line and doing a good job of isolating Snoopy. You said he was the one that was under a lot of kill threshold, but I don't know. I feel like you were kind of talking about duo lane, but it looks like even here in mid, they're looking to take out this Kabrak.
Look, supports in general are just gonna get killed. That's their job.
Neil Ma maybe proving it here in mid as the ultimate comes down from Snoopy, but it looks like he's the one taking all the damage. Great turnaround potential there from the Knights as Snoopy ends up having to go running the other way. Scary and Variety both end up low in solo, but no harm, no foul. These are both tanky characters that are hard to lock down. So kind of as we were alluding to, yeah, man, these supports are the ones that are going to end up trouble. This Variety is so brave here in solo.
What
he
is
does
he
not
doing?
think he's going to die, but Scary says you can't walk up to me at 1 HP.
Variety's asleep at the wheel. That's it. I mean, he survives at 1 health and then walks up to the wave. Does he not know Sun Wukong has literal wings? He turns into a bird and just flies at you? That's nuts to me that he just lets that happen.
Yeah, and let is the right word. Fear no evil. Great peel for Neil. So Scream uses the beads. River's Rebuke allows him to reposition. Scream trying to still find something, but he's just too low. The Tremors from Snoopy keep him locked in, but Paul's a hell, and there's too much healing. Cubo Fred wants to keep the fight going, but Variety shows up. Whirlwind too. There's too much action, so the rest of the Pittsburgh Knights are on the run. But at this point, with a kill on Snoopy, a kill onto Scream, and onto Variety, the Knights have already started to build up yet another lead.
And he's going to lose out on his blue buff as well. Having to rotate into that team fight just drags him away from the lane. Scary D not only steals blue, but forces an entire wave into the tower. Variety is going to fall pretty far behind in the short lane. And PK are just kind of picking fights wherever they want, or maybe eUnited is just handing them fights on the map. But so far, we're looking at about one fight at least. 1,400 gold in the lead in favor of PK. They've got the pressure in just about every single lane. And now we've got a reverse matchup in the long lane where Zatman's playing Cupid, who was already the better early game fighter, and he won out last time anyway. That's exactly what's going to happen every single step of the way. He's going to force that ult for free, and it opens up eUnited to getting ganked.
It's a little bit harder to make that a favorable trade for Zap when the wave is there. You can't dash in safely if you're going to take a whole bunch of damage even against main land, but still ends up taking that ultimate out. So if a little bit of help comes over there, like Cuvo Fred looking for Guy, then he knows that the ROM can't escape to the sky. So we'll see if the Knights have a plan to capitalize on that a bit later. But I think you're right, Miff, to maybe go in a little bit here. That's an odd play from Variety, to say the least, from a player that we know is capable of a lot better. So we'll see if eUnited can right the ship here a little bit As we cross that 8-minute threshold, almost towards 9 minutes, Variety is rotating over towards the mid just a little bit. Cubo Fred is the one that he's targeting here so far. Stygian Torment catches him, and Cubo Fred gets control, but Variety got no help. He had the Unbots dead to rights, but everyone else was elsewhere. Meanwhile, Scary D pushes out her when they collapse back onto Snoopy here in the jungle, but they don't have enough damage to bring him down just yet. Variety gets the leap over the wall. United end up looking the worse for wear as they're starting to run.
Man, it was just Variety tunnel visioning a little bit because Scary D zoned off the enemy team. Now Neoma pick up a kill as well. Cubo in the enemy jungle. PK have complete control of the map, and it's not because eUnited doesn't have the damage. We saw there that eUnited tried to disengage. PK took 10 seconds to just re-heal up, use Yamoja heals, use Hell heals, and then immediately re-engages. eUnited has to win the first fight. They can't let these fights go any longer.
Guy does eventually end up using the beads, but Zapman's in trouble now with Scream here in the 2v1. All those snipes land, as well as the slice and dice. Zapman is dead to rights here. Scream gets them and gets the beads for it. So both of the hunters probably using beads a little bit too late to get maximum value out of them, but it ends up working out for eUnited as Scream gets finally one kill on the board for EU.
And Scream's got a very interesting build. Stone Cutting Sword's one of the best individual damage items, and you're going to see it right here. Neoma just going to die to 156 per auto from Nemesis, but because instead of going Golden Blade, he's going to fall behind naturally on the map, just because Nemesis is going to struggle a little bit with jungle clear. She can't match the same amount that Hunbots is bringing. She's not really able to match the team fight prowess of Hunbots at this point of the game either. I'd have liked to see Scream just go with the meta, play for the late game, and just farm up.
Good cleanse there from Paul to get away from the stun, but now he's in a bit of a bad spot. Guy is able to get the kill credit. Something has happened here where eUnited just got 3 kills in a row, but Scary D rotates in and gets things going back their way. It's a double for the Sun Wukong solo laners. He takes care of Guy and her when that's the backline for eUnited removed. So even when eUnited get the 3 for 0, the Gold Fury started by Pittsburgh, they drop it and rotate towards this mid fight instead, but it's hard locking down Variety, so now they head back towards Gold, and eUnited are not on their way, so they end up getting the objective anyway.
Man, and that's why we can't sleep on Sun Wukong, especially when he's got a 3-level lead over his lane opponent. I don't know if you saw the damage output there, but he took about 20% of each of the carries' health bars, finishes off the kill on the mid laner, and he's got the best, one of the best rather, repositioning tools in the game. Transforming into a bird, you're going to get wherever you're going no matter what. Transform into a bull, you're going to get where you're going and knock up everyone on the way. Transform into a cat, they're stunned. Now you got a single target CC, similar to what Horus brings. It's a very versatile pick that is incredibly hard to kill, and now that he's got Soul Eater and it looks like he's moving into the sledge, he's going to be even harder to kill, and his damage output isn't going to be lacking at all.
No, it's not at all. This Sun Wukong looking every bit as strong as you have described it here, Myth. Aided in no doubt by some curious play at time by his direct opposition lane. But I think even without a couple gifts, Wukong a little stronger than we've been giving him credit for. As Scary D should be able to start rotating around the map and really start to cause some problems for the rest of eUnited. You know, we call Wukong kind of the jack of all trades. It feels like at times he doesn't quite have the damage to solo someone on his own, but he's so disruptive, he's so safe as well. It's hard, you never feel comfortable committing to him, and I think giving a god like that to Scary D is really going to cause eUnited some problems.
Especially considering just his play style of being, I'm going to hold W until I can't anymore. Well, normally he just dies if he can't hold W anymore, but now he's got an ultimate that just go up in the cloud.
Yeah, Snoopy's barely dead here. He didn't have to stop. There's no way he was making it out of there. Fury already down on this side of the map. Just a little bit of shop talk here, as obviously eUnited having some struggles here at this point in the game. It's about a 3,000 gold deficit they're staring up at as well here at this point. And now, her Scary D is behind the tier 1 in between. But this could be good. Final Judgment, no! It isn't able to connect. They don't need it though. Neoma still ends up falling to the Hieroglyphic Assault, so no big problems there, as they are able to take care of Neoma. So eUnited are finding the return picks here, Myth. It's just a question of the larger picture, the macro that they're struggling with here.
Yeah, eUnited picks up a couple kills, they go back to their lanes and farm. PK picks up a couple kills, they go to Gold Fury, they put some pressure on a tower. They try and do whatever they can to increase the lead further, which I think is why it's a little bit curious to see them putting so much pressure on the left side of the map / center right there. If anything, you want to pressure out the right lane or group up on the tower and look for it there so you can go to Pyro after.
Paul uses the Aegis perfectly. That should have been a kill for Scream, but that relic was perfect. Sets up for Cubo Fred to get the return, and Guy can't find the snipes from range either, so Paul lives through it all. Impressively done for the hell in mid. And we haven't yet given Guy credit. He is ahead of Zapman over there in the long lane, the only person on eUnited that is winning their direct matchup, but I really don't think it's going to be enough. Zap just closed the gap significantly, so the lead's already evaporating.
And look at Guy J's build as well. He's been forced into going for the Toxic Blade just to deal with all the healing on the map, not only in his lane against this Cupid, which is going to take away a little bit of his damage output in the early game. Even if he does have maybe a half-level lead or a couple hundred gold, even the itemization is still going to favor Zapman as far as the 1v1 goes.
That's a good point, and I think Toxic Blade is a better item than we give it credit. Look at all that attack speed, movement speed, the pen on it, and obviously the anti-heal passive. And I think this item will still fit into the attack speed build if you want to get Silver Branch on the back of this and try and go over the cap as all ROMs are doing nowadays. But you're certainly right. There's no way it's better than Atalanta's in that slot, right? It's just not. So it certainly still feels like a detriment as Pyromancer goes down for PK on the right side of the map. The objective control is still all order.
And with PK desyncing the timers of Pyromancer and the Oni Fury now, they can just continually bounce back and forth between the two of them, not allowing eUnited to make a trade.
This works for Neoma. He locks down Snoopy. That's nasty for the support player. That's how you get onto the highlight reel from the support role. Locking down Snoopy from across the wall with the perfectly placed Rivers Rebuke. And that sets up for the kill from Cubo. 4-0-5, by the way. Having a great set here so far is the jungler for PK. And as you mentioned, this Fury not too far from spawning. It is off the timer for Pyro, so there's not even an answer back for eUnited if they want to go elsewhere on the map. PK should just control this part of the map.
And look at where Scary D was just at. He was proxying waves at the enemy Phoenix. No one from United is going to go over there because they can't kill this Sun Wukong at level 18. 4 levels up on the opposition, 4 levels up on the jungler. I mean, he's tanky, he does damage. He'll win a 2v1 if anyone does decide to head over. But since he spent so much time proxying that wave, he's going to have a very easy time rotating into this Oni Fury.
And Zapman's in some trouble over here as Scream is looking for him, but hiding inside the minions is Zap, now healing up with those heart bombs. That's left Cubo Fred in an awful position. Look at all the ultimates they were willing to commit to guarantee the end of his life. So Cubo Fred won't be here, and now eUnited suddenly have great positioning around this objective, but they don't have some of their best team fighting ultimates.
But Scary D's already behind him. It seems like they're going to wait for United to go ahead and pull it, and then we'll see either they decide to go for the steal or some disruption. I don't think PK is out of the team fight just yet.
Well, Scream should reveal that Scary D is back here. It's a good thing that Nemesis showed up, or that could have been disaster for eUnited. I wonder if they'll drop the Fury at this point, now that they know it's the full 4-on-5, and they've had to reset it. I wonder if eUnited really do want to pull this objective again, but it looks like they do. That's scary going into all this sustain for PK. You know they're going to win the poke war.
And Cuvo's already respawned. United spends a lot of time hovering around it, but they didn't commit themselves to the engagement or the objective, so instead they walk away with nothing. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, but a lot of that is afforded to them by Scary D's positioning. Even if he were grouped up with the rest of his team in the 4-on-4 and had to walk in directly to the Gold Fury, it would have been much harder to disrupt it, but because he had that behind them positioning, United had to pull off and address that before they get pincered. I like the positioning from Scary D.
Oh, good final judgment. A better ultimate from Guy. He secures the Oni Fury on the side of eUnited. Both of those backline ultimates from EU were there to contest the objectives. That is certainly something to keep this game closer. It's a big swing in their direction, but they're certainly not in the lead yet. Let's see what PK does. This is where the desync of those objectives, I think, might hurt PK. When they lose the Fury there, they can't go directly to Pyro in response.
They can't. That is tough, but they can continually look for pressure on the map and take team fights wherever they want.
Oh, but suddenly Cuvo's in some trouble, has to leap away from Scream, who has regained the level lead, by the way. Gotta make sure we keep giving eUnited some props where they've earned it, and they have earned it. Guy is even with Zapman, Scream a little bit ahead of Cuvo, Fred about half a level. In fact, Zap has to keep running from Guy here on the left side of the map, and really Hurry's only a little bit behind in mid. It's really the solo diff that's hurting him at this point.
It is, and Scary D hasn't even been really utilizing the rotation pass as well as he could have. Even in that last engagement where Cuvo got picked out before the Gold Fury, that was off of Variety's rotation. The Stygian Torment sets up for the kill from Hurrywin, and Scary D was just kind of maneuvering around the map before that. He is this absolute Goliath right now in terms of just kill pressure and survivability, but he hasn't really been in place to make use of it perfectly, proactively just yet. I think once Scary D starts to group up with the team and they start to really play as a 5-on-5, that's when we'll see PK at their strongest. Right now, eUnited are doing a great job mitigating loss, and I couldn't even begin to tell you how Scream decides what he's going to build, because I don't think we've seen anything like this from any other Nemesis in the league ever. And that's a very prolific god. Stone Cutting Sword into Brawler's Beat Stick immediately into the Wing Blade. You've got auto attack damage, you've got a little bit of ability damage, he's going for this hybrid, and then Wing Blade on the tail end of it means that he can deal with the slows. Scary D is going to have a much harder time peeling him off, as is Paul, but he's sacrificing a lot in terms of damage.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's a cohesive build, but I think all of the items individually make a ton of sense, right? He needs the Wing Blade to deal with all these slows. He needs the anti-heal to deal with all this healing. Stone Cutting gives him his best chance at sustained damage. So I don't know if it's so much a holistic picture from Scream as items he knows he almost has to build to try and deal with this PK draft. Maybe a bit boxed into a corner by the way this game has gone so far. But eUnited are the ones with the positioning advantage around the Pyro, at least for now, though Guy is way over in left, as it looks like Zap was considering rotating. No, the Hunters are staying in left, so I don't think there's going to be a big battle over these objectives, not until these Hunters start to rotate.
I mean, if the Hunters don't rotate, eUnited's going to have the advantage on the objective just because Scream does have the Stone Cutting Sword. That's potentially one of the best burn items in the game, so he's going to have the most sustainable damage. If eUnited can somehow sneak their way into Pyromancer, they should be able to clear it out pretty easily, and they also have the confirmation advantage. Thoth has the hardest hitting ability on the map. I think eUnited's fine leaving their ADC over in the long lane.
Well, even if they were fine, they won't have to worry. It looks like Guy is rotating into this next fight. Neil used the ultimate early, but remember, Guy gives them a numbers advantage. Doesn't matter, though. Cubo locks in Snoopy with the ultimate, but Stygian Torment hits 3. Big ultimate from Variety. Hurwind is there to follow up. Neil falls. Guy gets the second with the ultimate as he takes care of Scary D. Pittsburgh Knights got to make sure everyone's there next time, or the fights are going to keep looking like that.
That's tough, especially considering how that fight starts off. Yamoja drops the wall, Snoopy tries to do it in return, but instead of really helping himself out, he boxes him off completely and forces not only him to sit inside the Yamoja ult, but no one on his team could have rotated in to help him out. That's why that first pick was so clean, but with the entire enemy team grouped up like that, we saw what Hurrywin's capable of doing, and that gold lead that was just 4K earlier is now quickly starting to dip back in favor of eUnited. Now only 2,000 in the lead are PK. 22 minutes in the game, that's not a lot.
Yeah, and I think Scary D has really botched this lead, man. I don't know another way to describe it. I mean, it's nowhere near as strong as it used to be, and he got almost no value out of it. Miff, he should have been the bully of the last 6 or 7 minutes, but instead, he has been chilling in solo, he's been late to fights. I don't think this has been the best way to utilize this Wukong lead.
I agree completely. He really could have done a lot more. I mean, it's not often that you're 4 levels up over your opposition, and you only hit level 21. So now that Scary D's fully at level 20, it's just a matter of time for Variety to catch up and bring the exact same value to the team fights, if not more, because he's got that huge CC ultimate. With Scary D going Jotuns as that last slotted item besides his blessing, he's going to get a lot more damage online, but he's sacrificing a lot of survivability. Scary, what was that, bud? Why are you ulting there? Must have been a misclick, but it doesn't matter. He's got CDR now. Jotun's Wrath online. That'll be back up
20%.
before he needs it.
That's right. He's gonna have it soon before you know it. So hey, it's no big deal over there for Scary. It looks like there is a bit of a grouping happening over near Primal as well. 3 members, really 4 members of eUnited and a couple members of Pittsburgh Knights. I don't think eUnited realized the numbers advantage they'd have here. They might be starting it up already, but now it seems it is starting to click in. They're starting to pull the Primal Fury towards them. They've punished comes out Kerwin already. So the dash down, at least for now. Snoopy takes some damage. eUnited drop the Fury as PK start to show a stronger presence. Everyone's here except for Scary, who's slowly making his way from mid.
But Thoth already using that ultimate just to get poke. Not gonna work, they're already back to full health. The longer this fight goes on, the more it's gonna favor PK. But so far, PK's been pretty hesitant to return that poke. It really seems like it's only Neil stepping forward. But now that Scary's there, it should get a lot easier.
Well, now we'll get to see what Scary can do. He's not quite as far ahead experience-wise as he used to be, but still has quite a few items online. My man is 6-slotted, so he's not done having his impact just yet. Gotta show up for us here, though, Scary, so we can see what that lead is for. Big ultimate coming out from Cubo, though, that isolates Snoopy on the right-hand side. A leap in, and Cubo gets the kill. But Variety, again, being disruptive with the Stygian Torment. There's the Snipes from
Nice
Guy,
shot.
and Cubo falls in trade. But Guy's low now on the back, has to roll out, but there's a perfect Feels of Love from Zapman. Guy ends up sent to the grave. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of PK.
And Scream's just now getting the engagement, forced to use the ultimate, but the healing's already coming through.
That's going to make it hard for Scream to find his value. Has to dash back out. And it's a disjointed fight there from Pittsburgh Knight. That's 2 ultimates from Herwin in this fight as well. And they're both a bit underwhelming. I don't know, man. eUnited, they looked better in those kind of frantic fights when they were able to find those picks. But in our first big 5-on-5, PK came out way ahead.
I think that fight really turns around once PK was able to pressure them out. Zapman does a very good job holding on to his ultimate to confirm a couple of kills. Now Gold Fury falling low. Variety, you might have stepped up too far.
Yeah, my man got baited. Thought he had a chance to contest but the Fury, but he just drops it. I mean, Pittsburgh Knights just drop the objective when he gets close. Once he commits, they take the kill and the objective. So Variety now with a couple of little engagements that I don't think went the way that he wanted. But I think he's made up for it. He has had some sick ultimates in these team fights.
He really has, but now PK pick up the Gold Fury, likely a tier 1 tower here. With 3 grouped up from eUnited on the other side of the map, they could look towards the tier 2. Guy J has respawned. I would have liked to see PK even just back to base and make use of that time that Variety's going to be dead. It's still 30 seconds left till he respawned. Had they decided to, they could have been already grouped up on Fire Giant and forcing a fight here. But instead, it seems like a tier 1 tower, go back, spend some of that gold, see what you can do, and then move into the Fire Giant is going to be the plan. And we saw how the team fights are going to play out once they start these objective dances. eUnited tries their best to deal damage from a range. Thoth's MO is just, I'm going to hit you from further away than you can hit me, and the longer the fight goes on, it's going to favor me. That's completely countered out when you have a Cupid, a Hell, and a Yamoja on your team, sustaining through every single bit of it. eUnited now know if they want to win an engagement, it's going to have to be the very first one, and they're needing to kill immediately.
Well, let's take a look at this build from God. We wanted to check in on earlier with that Toxic Blade. It's what we thought. Atalantis, Kins, and Silverbranch basically just trading out the Odie bow in this build normally for the Toxic Blade. That is going to hurt his damage a bit because he's losing 10% of that attack speed that would convert to the Silverbranch passive, but gets the flat pen to make up for it. So Fire Giant now at half, but eUnited come in to force them off. Snoopy is the one that's in there first. That forces the reset. It's probably going to cost him his life, but should be worth it for him, as it does get them off the objective. Cuba Fred's ultimate means Snoopy falls. It's a double as he takes care of Scream as well. Variety trying to leap back towards his team. Cuba Fred chases,
nice shot,
but Herwin takes care of Paul. That was the final judgment and gets rid of all the healing, or at least most of it, by getting rid of the Hell.
Snoopy just goes in way too early there. No one's in range to back him up. He survives a long time, but because PK had Scary D zoning off the back line, it was very hard for them to get in there and back him up. If it had gone a little bit smoother, had Zapman been able to connect the ultimate or even the heart bomb, that kill would have been a lot cleaner. But now, it seems like eUnited are re-engaging.
Guy tries to roll in, but Scary D got the peel. Then he gets him, though, with the snipes from the top. So that makes up for it, even though they end up losing Hurry. A lot of members have died. This has been a delayed, scattered battle, but look at that Riptide keeping Gaijay locked in. It was in a bouncy council being bounced around, and the one that comes out on top is Zatman. Variety, though, being pulled in as well. These Riptides from Neilmaw have been nuts. I don't know if they can kill him underneath the tier 2 tower, but probably can't go for the FG anymore either, so Pittsburgh Knights kind of idling as Variety tries to jump in for the kill.
But they've still got 40 seconds left on Gaijay respawn. Scary D back in 30. If PK want to, they can regroup, start to use that healing, and then again, pull the Fire Giant, force this numbers advantage, 4 versus 3 in favor of PK. But we're seeing it again. The longer these fights go on, even though United is doing a great job finding these trades, it's always at the negative, at a deficit, 2 for 1. 3 for 1, 3 for 2, all favoring PK. The longer these fights go on, man, it's only going to get better for them. eUnited need to make a concentrated effort. They need to really play around their onks. We saw in that last team fight, Onk comes through just to try and peel out Snoopy, doesn't really do much, and then PK disengage, re-heal up, and then go for another team fight. eUnited have to group up as 5. The death ball strategy is the only thing that works against healers.
We'll see how well they can make it work. They do have that upgraded Onk there for Variety, so he'll have to make sure he's using that at exactly the right moment. Otherwise, these fights are going to be very, very difficult for eUnited. PK have the control around the Fire Giant pit for now. No shell for Zap, no shell for Neil, no beads for Paul, but it's a similar situation for eUnited. No relics for Guy at all, no Aegis or Whirlwind, but the rest of them are there for eUnited, so both these teams might want to wait a little bit longer until these relics come up off cooldown.
Seems like the Fire Giant dance is what PK is looking for here. They're not really going to try and commit to the 50-50. The second eUnited comes in, I expect PK are going to try and gas pedal this fight. There's not really much they can retreat to either. If eUnited decide to go towards mid, that tower is one auto attack from dead.
PK should be able to keep pushing them through it if the fight goes that way. Neil taking quite a bit
Nice
of
ult!
So uses the ultimate, and that locks in 3, but what's going to be the follow-up on the backside? Scary D goes into Hurry, that locks him down, but the Knights take more damage than eUnited do. They want to try and lock down Scream to the left of the fight. He's isolated, and Cubo, Fred, and Paul will chase. But the tier 1 does just enough to keep him alive. Meanwhile, on the right, Scary D is low. He barely makes it out. Meanwhile, Neil Maw gets locked down. Gaijay's low too, but he gets up to the sky. Scary D is low. The snipe started up, and the ultimate from Cubo Fred makes the difference. Paul gets a double kill as Guy and Snoopy both go down. Scary D just barely outranges Variety, and now he's left all alone. The F6 boat is coming through. I don't know if it'll actually go through, but some frustration there from eUnited.
I mean, what could be more frustrating than that? eUnited was winning out on the engagement, but they just didn't have the damage to burst through all of that healing. I mean, I said eUnited need to look to Deathball, but it seems like that's what happened for PK. It was a 4-man grouping of all the healers just chasing down a team fight with Scary D running away, and the entire time, eUnited just taking damage to their backs. Now Fire Giant's going to go down for free. Scream had to disengage and look for a Phoenix and doesn't even get that.
And Cubo Fred bullying Whirlwind. He used the final judgment already to contest, but without vision, he ended up being too early, just helped lower it for them. Looks like Scream is getting the better of this battle. He has the basic attack focus build now, with the Kin size to go alongside the stone cutting. I said he was getting the better, but maybe not, as Scary D just keeps battling. Why does Scream stick around in that? Meanwhile, right side Phoenix goes down, and maybe eUnited are a bit out of this one.
Scream had no other option. Being completely he's not outrunning a Sun Wukong. That dude turns into a bird, if I haven't said it enough already. So he has to stick it in there and try and look for the fight. We saw a small disengage from him as he tries to retreat back into his wave. But with Soul Eater as it is, all you're doing is making it easier for Scary D to sustain. And now for the next 30 seconds, eUnited have to defend without their jungler.
Well, PK take the mid Phoenix, right Phoenix down already. And they're going to come grab this tier 2 over in the left. And really no chance for that one to stay standing any longer. Whirlwind's back up, Scream 20 seconds away, but Pittsburgh Knights are going to force their way in. No minions here for the backdoor protection removal, but who needs it? That's all 3 Phoenixes down. Pittsburgh Knights melted quickly. eUnited, though, are going to look for the counter fight. There's the Stygian Torment, and that does bring into Scary D is low, but makes it up to the Somersault Cloud, so he should be A-OK. Guy used the snipes. That does do some damage to Paul, but Nowhere
Nice
near
ult.
enough. The Fields of Love means there is going to be no engage with the rest of eUnited, and now it looks like PK wants to go back in, but big damage from her went to the Scourge, and meanwhile Scream is on the side. PK decides to just go ahead and leave, but Scary D is teleported back in. They want more fight.
They pre-pop the Phantom for the damage mitigation, but the engagement doesn't come through. It seems like Snoopy was the only one that really wanted to go in there, and he gets punished for it completely. And now PK being allowed to disengage. I've said it 100 times already, but they still have all of those healers. Now just about every single one of them's full health.
Going to be very difficult for eUnited from this position. All 3 Phoenix down, Fire Minions starting the crest right outside of the base. The mid ones are pouring in, the right ones are close, and eUnited's out of ultimates, they're out of options, and it looks like they're starting to struggle here as Pittsburgh Knights continue to sustain up. Now they move in, there's the final judgment, but doesn't get much value. Fear No Evil a whole lot better as the Titan gets lower and lower. Paul takes care of Variety, and that's it. PK in 33 minutes take care of game 2. And close out the set.
I mean, I want to break it down to, in the team fights, Cuvo diff. That man was, what, 10-11, absolutely popping off. It just seemed like the team fights from eUnited were a little bit disjointed. They didn't know when they wanted to engage. They didn't really know when they wanted to disengage. And when you're playing against healers, that's the most important thing you have to lock down, is when is it the right time to fight? When can I stick in there and look for some kills? And it seems like they chose to chase down Scary D in the most critical Fire Giant team fight. Don't chase a Sun Wukong. He's really good at living.
That's one of the things he's best at, and it ends up working for them there. And I think you're right, man. eUnited just seemed a bit disjointed to me in that game number 2, and Pittsburgh Knights were happy to capitalize on it with that sustain-heavy composition. So that'll do it for this set. It's 2-0 in favor of PK. Quick break, and we'll be right back with the desk.
How could I trust you when you hurt me so bad? Hurt me so bad. Hurt me so bad. Why would I love you when you hurt me so bad? Hurt me so bad. Hurt me so bad. How could I trust you when you hurt me so bad? Hurt me so bad. Hurt me so bad. Why would I love you when you hurt me so bad? Hurt me so bad. Hurt me so bad.
Well, welcome back, everyone, here as we go into discussing that last set. It was an interesting one, to say the least, but maybe not for the reasons we thought it was going to be today. I mean, if you had told me one of these games was going to be an upset, everyone's looking at set number 2, but this just was not eUnited's day, Aggro.
PK came to play today, and I think they deserve a ton of credit for that. They looked really, really good. eUnited definitely seemed to take a step back today in comparison to what we've seen from them in recent weeks. But I think I'd rather focus on the positives here for the Pittsburgh Knights. Fred, who for my money has underperformed here in phase number 2 especially, really looked solid today on this Hun Bats. Shocker that that's the god that he looked really good on, one of his signature picks throughout his whole career. Scary, even though, as Finch said, didn't push the lead maybe as much as he should have in that game number 2. Still got a massive lead in game number 2 and looked particularly dominant on that. Pittsburgh Knights looked good today. They've got to show me that they can continue to look good in coming weeks, because that's been a consistency problem for them. But when this version of PK shows up, they look very hard to beat.
That Riptide specifically, I was laughing about it. I'm not even going to bother hiding it. Yep. I even giggled a little bit there during the replay. To catch Guy J once, get the beads, then right as the beads run out, Guy J rolls back into it, and then unfortunately steps a third time into it. At that point, you have to laugh a little bit. And, well, Cuvo, like you said, had a fantastic game. The Knights as a whole had a fantastic game. And I just think that when it comes down to it, they showed up and did exactly what they needed to do today, right? We've mentioned it in the past. If you're going to take on teams like the Renegades and like eUnited, like they have these last few weeks, you have to be able to grind them into the ground if you're the Knights to showcase that you can be in the top 4. And they've done exactly that. And, well, who better to talk to about how they're feeling afterward than themselves? So we'll go down and talk to Neil right now.
Thanks, Score. I am indeed here with Neil. Looking great today, man. How you feeling?
Thanks, man.
I want to talk to you about this game. Yeah, I'm glad you are. I want to talk to you about this set, because I think coming into this, some of us were saying that we thought this might be one of the closer ones of the weekend, but you all proved that it wasn't. How is the team feeling after this win?
Yeah, we're definitely feeling good. Things are definitely coming together more so in Phase 2 than Phase 1. I think we still didn't play our cleanest set today, but I mean, like I said, it's just kind of a process for us, right? Like we're finally finding our footing in the meta, and we just have a little bit better chemistry right now. I think that as everything ramps towards the end of the year, everyone kind of picks it up a little bit, so we're definitely looking good going forwards.
See, we got Paul hanging out there in the background. How was the team feeling after Zap got the solo kill there on the guy? Because we were popping off a little bit on the cast. Were you all feeling a little bit when he got the turnaround?
I mean, you can always count on Zap to show some of the young blood in the league a little bit of chutzpah. You know, Steve gives and he takes, and against the newer players like Guy, I mean, he's just gonna be taken from him, you know. So yeah, it's just kind of expected though. We were obviously super pumped that he got the solo kill. I think the first kill too, he was saying he just like messed it up, even though Guy killed him after he high ulted him. But yeah, Steve obviously a beast. You can see here, doesn't miss those autos. What can you say?
No, he doesn't miss those. Yeah, ready. Hey, you know what? We won't even say that maybe it was a bad fight selection, because he came back on that one and got the win there. Neil, talk to me about the sustained comp there in Game 2. Is that something you all like to go to with the Cupid, the Hell, and the Emoji, or did they just give you a bunch of good gods and you took them?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, we're comfortable picking a lot of different characters, and sometimes in different draft scenarios, like, yeah, these look good together, and then you end up with like this healing comp. It doesn't look like it's very fun to play against, to be honest. So we're just like, yeah, let's just draft it. You know, our drafts change week to week. We like trying a lot of different stuff. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But you know, just expect the unexpected with us.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that Yamoja game. I don't think you'll be getting a lot more of those there, Neil. Looked great on it, man. Appreciate every chance I get to talk to you. Appreciate taking some time. And I'll get it back to the desk. They're going to close the day out.
Yeah, take care.
Well, that versatility there for the Knights has been fun to watch over the last few weeks as they try things out. Even the set mid, it was weird when we saw it, but it worked for them, so you can't really argue with it as it goes forward. And Aggro, it's not often I get to throw out big milestones that came through, and before that set, I had mentioned that Scream was 6 kills away from getting 100. Unfortunately, only 5 kills were found for him through that set, so he's still at that 99, which maybe irks me just a little bit that I have to update that page one more time to say, yep, he's got 1 more kill. We'll have to see what he can do, because that was the only set eUnited had this week. 0 and 10 still at the bottom. Unfortunately for them, and like we said maybe not taking as many steps forward, at least today, as we've seen in the last few weeks.
Yeah, tough week there for eUnited because I'm sure that team, I mean, they go to so many game threes. They force a lot of close games. They probably feel like they're really, really close to getting a win. And then it's, okay, it's PK, a good team, but a team that has shown some vulnerabilities. We feel like we could probably exploit that. To get 2-0'd pretty convincingly has got to be a harder loss than some of the other 9 that they've taken. So, that's got to be a tough one for them to swallow.
And as you can see here, tomorrow, first match, Radiance and Sanguine, has been postponed. You can go to Twitter and read more about that, or I believe you can have a command in chat that will tell you a little bit more about that. But we're still starting at 3 p.m., whether the first set is postponed or not. And we're going to be watching Space Station versus Obey Alliance tomorrow, and then on Sunday, once again, jumping back into it. Excited to see the Knights go up against Ghost, especially after the way today went. Should be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And then the Renegades coming back there for SSG. I mean, either of those games are going to be hot, but do you think Ghost, do they trip up twice in 1 week, or do they come back to form on Sunday?
I imagine they'll come back pretty focused, and I don't know how well PK really matches up against Ghost style either, so I think that Ghost should be pretty favored, but overall, I feel like we should have said that today. I do think that Renegade's playstyle is much more suited to combating Ghost's playstyle than a team like PK, but that Pittsburgh Knights team is full of veterans. They're probably brimming with confidence after a big win today. I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup to start us off on Sunday.
And as of late, they're full of surprises, too, so I'll be excited to see what they have there. Of course, if you missed it, go back in the VOD, watch that Renegade set. It was a fun one to be able to go through. But either way, we're done here for the SBL. Tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll see you then.
Peaches.